Hello, welcome back to the workshop. It's fantastic to have you here on episode 22 of the Alec Steele show. Today's show is going to be a little bit different and certainly very special because we've moved out of the outside working area. We're into the inside working area and we're going to talk a little bit about power hammers. This is going to be an introduction to power hammers. I've had some fantastic people here, one from Denmark, one from Michigan, two guys from the UK here today, and how would you say, Denmarkian? Why would I not just think of Dane? That's ridiculous. The Dane and the Michiganian? Michiganer are here in the workshop. We just had pizza and they both know machine work. So I was actually playing on the lathe and they were helping me work out what to do, and we just had some fun hanging around on the lathe, and I had some fun learning that. But today the class has been a Sledgehammer class, and so it included pretty much most of what I'm going to say in this little live show. So I thought I'd do it all again now it's a little fresh in my mind, and I'd do a little bit of a talk to introduce you to the world of power hammers, introduce you to some machines you might not be familiar with, introduce you to, if you were going to get a power hammer, what would be some of the first things you do, what might be some of the things that you might practice to kind of get a feel for it, see how you like it and have some fun and learn and progress along the way. I've got some hunks of metal in the fire, nice big pieces of steel to play with, and I thought I'd do a little talk about that. The hammer that I'm going to be using the most, you'll see that there are three big machines in here. Hammer that I'm going to be using the most is the Pilkington. This is a Pilkington power hammer. Haven't got any idea of how old this is. This might well be 100 years old, it might well be 60 years old. It's probably going to be more like 80, 90, 100. A beautiful cast frame, and of course the power hammers that I have here are pneumatic power hammers. That means that they operate through a motor, and they're self-contained, pardon me. That means that they operate by a motor powering a flywheel that powers a crank that pushes a piston up into a cylinder that is then creating a compression, which is moving air, and sometimes it pushes it and then pulls it back. Sometimes it pushes it and then as the piston comes down in the cylinder, it's then pushing it into the bottom of the ram. This particular one here, I'll get to some forging in a few seconds here, but I do like to do the little intro. This particular one here pushes and pulls. This particular one here just pushes and pushes. So it's pushing air into the top and bottom of the ram with each stroke. Wonderful machines. The nice thing about a pneumatic power hammer is there's a lot of, you can put a big piece of steel in like that, then you can flip it down and work half an inch right underneath it, one stroke to the next without any worry, because that air, it's under pretty low pressure already. It's only about 60 psi as far as I'm aware, and so you can put stuff all the way up to the top without fear of damaging the machine, like you might had you had a mechanical power hammer and you're trying to do the same thing, try and work a large piece of stock and then a thin piece of stock. This is a Pilkington, this is a Hinler. Pilkington 100 weight, so a ram weight of about 120 pounds. Hinler has a ram weight of about 60 kilograms. However, I've seen this breed of hammer have ram weights that are a little bit less than what they're advertised as. So I don't know. And the interesting thing is I do find that Pilkington 120 pound ram hits harder than the Hinler that has an 132 pound ram. Next thing to note about power hammers, and this is the most exciting thing of all, is they will kill the hell out of you. They will kill you multiple times over. They're really, really, really dangerous machines. These things you can't stop running. You cannot make them stop running by pressing a button, by engaging some sort of action. There's no way that happens. These things will keep hammering so long as the treadle's down and the flywheel is spinning, and there is nothing that you can do to stop that. There's nothing you can do to stop that flywheel. That flywheel there probably weighs 200 or 300 pounds. It's a piece of big hunk of cast iron inside that cage right there. The flywheel in there is at least 130 pounds or so. Nothing you can do to stop that when it's spinning, apart from let it stop on its own accord. So bear that in mind. When you're near a power hammer, treat it as an object that you really should be quite safe about. So, if there are other people in the shop, make sure they're not going near the treadle. If you're doing any work for the dies, make sure that nobody is in the region of the treadle. Nobody's going to mess with that stuff. If you're leaving a power hammer on and there are other people in the workshop that aren't familiar with power hammers, you're being a dick. Don't leave the power hammer on when there are people around that don't know how to act around a power hammer. It doesn't take a lot to severely hurt yourself. it takes dropping a hammer billet on a treadle to get the ram to cycle and hit, and that would be a really bad thing. And it's one of those things. You'll joke about a lot of things in a workshop. You'll joke about all sorts of things, especially when it's kind of minor injuries. But when, I think just like with machinists, you don't joke about getting sucked into a lathe. Blacksmiths, we don't seem to joke too much about getting our hands caught under the power hammer, because most people know somebody that's got their hand stuck under a power hammer in the last year, and it's a serious worry. So it's something we really try and avoid, and we really try and stay sensible about it. You'll notice that when I'm working, I really try and make sure that I've got a nice solid footing, whichever hammer I'm using, whichever kind of way I'm actuating the treadle, and I'll also make sure that my workpiece is slightly to the side of my body. So if it spits up or if it spits back, it's not going to hit me in the chin or give me the old Scottish spearing. He gets so annoyed. The old Scottish, the old Irish, I don't know. It's terrible. So I'm going to run in here. I'm going to turn the machine on. I don't know what I'm going to do, which order, but I'm going to run in there. Where are my tongs? They're in there, I think. I'm going to run in there and I'm going to take a piece of steel. The first thing that I'm going to do is I want to make a bar. So I want to make the steel be reduced in cross-section but be even all the way across. Now, something you'll often hear me talk about when I'm forging material is that the amount of surface area contact on the piece that we're working is indirectly proportional to the amount of steel that we're going to move. That means that, okay, if we put the whole amount of steel on the die, we're going to move less material than if we put a little bit. So we bear that in mind. And what we're going to do when we want to bar up a piece of material and we want to break it down with a continuous cross-section, not a diminishing or increasing cross-section, what we'll do is we'll feed into the power hammer die, because what is actually happening there is we are using a small amount of surface area contact, which means that we can bring it down, and that creates a plane of large surface area contact, so that then when you feed into the next step, there's twice as much surface area contact. Once you get past the small amount of surface area contact, it goes level with the rest of the piece, and the hammer stops falling at that point. There's too much surface area contact. So we feed in when we want to bar it up, and I'll talk about the opposite in the next heat. So I'm going to turn on the power hammer. Oakley dokley. This just happens to be a little small hammer, a small £1.75 hammer billet right about there. Yeah, we need to mess with the exposure a little bit there, Sam, and the focus. The focus is on the bottom left. So first with the exposure, let's put a ring behind it. Right about there, perfect. Great, as long as that stays focused, we'll be happy. So in piece of 1 5/8 round, you get it a little cold, about an orange right now. I'm going to put an inch onto the anvil. Hope you can hear me well. Put an inch onto the anvil. And you see, if I make one hammer blow there, okay, I can let that focus and I'm going to put it on the manual focus. Sorry guys, let me just sort that out for you. That should be alright. Is that focus, Sam? Great. You can always focus it by just using the larger ring. So, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll just reiterate what just happened. Let's pretend this is the first hit. That's the first hit. That creates a little notch right there, right? So then if I feed in a little more material, that then brings me down to the plane. That then means that I have a square and a parallel side to the piece, which is very good. And so as you feed in, parallel sides. I'll then go back to this next side, 790 degrees. Feathering it in until I get close to my tongs and move the tongs. It bottoms out on all that surface area. I can then go back through it. You see, taking a little bit of material, those little bites, means that we bring it down to the plane. Okay, sorry guys, taking these little bites means that we do bring it down to the plane with each blow. I hope you can see that. So that is creating a bar, nice and slowly, of course. Let us know how that noise worked out. Obviously, this is a
hammer.
Sorry.
The power hammer, the cancellation on that is just muting everything.
Oh, so you can't hear anything?
It's really quiet. But I'll just turn the music off. But that's at 200%.
Okay.
It's fine now, but when you're under the hammer.
Yeah, it doesn't really work under the hammer. Okay, that's all right. You're on the wrong view, by the way. They can't see anything. Sorry, guys. So I'll try and describe what was happening. As you saw me taking little notches, feeding into the dies, taking a little another notch, and then it bottoms out on all of that surface area. It's good. That means that you can really easily create bars, create bar cross sections, parallel-sided cross sections, and you don't really have to worry about whether you're getting taped parallel sides, because provided your hammer has parallel dies, you'll be all right. Funnily enough, this Pilkington, I haven't touched the dies since I got it, but the dies are actually out of square, which is probably not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. It'd be nice for them to be nice and square, but hey ho. I'm now going to take another piece of steel, and I'm going to taper it. Now, learning the lesson from the last heat, I guess what I'll do is I'll talk about it first. So now when you're tapering material, and we remember again that the surface area of contact is indirectly proportional to the amount of steel moved, if you feed out the material, what happens is you're creating an ever-diminishing amount of surface area contact. Not only are you doing that, but also as you go, you're reducing the material ahead of yourself, which means that you're creating an ever-diminishing volume of material, amount of material that you need to move. So what happens is that you will exponentially create a taper if you feed out at the same rate and hammer at the same power. Which is great, because that means you create a taper. But it does mean that you then have to become a little cautious as to finding a way to not create a bullet nose as would naturally want to be created, as it's exponentially getting harder, but instead you do need to find a way to counteract that. So that's just about getting a little more control with the hammer, etc., etc. So what you're going to see me do is you're going to see me take the hammer billet. It happens to be a hammer billet. I have a lot of hammer billets hanging around. I'm going to come to the power hammer and I'm going to be feeding out under the power hammer, turning as I do one pass, turning 90 degrees and coming out and doing another pass. And I'm just going to draw this down and I'm going to create a taper. And then, depending on how much heat I have, I might take it to an octagon just by working the diagonals the same way, then to 16 sides, then to round. You'll notice that this particular power hammer, it likes to skip a beat. There's a lot of air leakage in this. It's an old machine. It's probably had a lot of abuse. She's a workhorse. She's worked hard. There's a little bit of a skip of a beat in there, which isn't really that much of a big deal. But you'll notice that when I go onto the finer blows, it wants to boom, boom. It wants to miss a few beats before it hits. So I'm now going to take a heat and pull the taper out on this thing. I'll take it nice and easy. Sam, if you do want me to, if I do start speaking, just tell me how much louder I need to speak. Yeah, just yell at me. Just yell, absolutely. Right, so I'm going to come back out here to the forge. We've got the little kitchen forge running back here. God, this thing is working like a champ, I'll tell you that. I put the 3 burners in it today. While I was doing this Sledgehammer class, you would not believe it. The heat in that thing. I don't know, I melted something, whether it was the hammer billets or whether it was a little bit of the refractory. Oh, I don't know, but there's a big puddle in the back of that forge. Right, so I'm actually going to take a piece I'm just working, get a pretty good grip of these cogs are a little messed up. And now I'm going to feed back off the dies. I really have to yell, do I? I'm going to feed back off the dies, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how it exponentially tapers. You see, I'm not adjusting my power or my feed rate. You'll see that it becomes bullet nose. It creates a bullet nose. Now we need to control that. So, that's where you've got to use your intuition a little bit. Work the high spots. see I've got a rhombus on that piece. It's really not ideal to have rhombuses when you're doing tapers, but you can work around it. We can go ahead and fix that. I'll do this by fitting the long diagonal. And then I'm just going to polish up the square. Pretty simple little taper right there. So I definitely recommend, trying those two things, making bars and making tapers. That's going to get you off to a great little start there. And now, take your time when you're first doing it. Get a little used to how it works. Fight the rhombus when the rhombus develops, and don't rush in to taking it to a little bit of a more advanced thing where you might be doing a hit turn, where you really want to draw out the material. Just get a feel for it. Just get a feel for it. Take it nice and easy. From here, what will I do from next? It's got plenty of steel in the fire, so plenty of opportunity to do all sorts of little fun things. What I might see if I can do is take another piece, take a heat on the Pilkington. I don't know. Draw it out draw it out a little bit, then maybe flip it around, and then maybe run to the Sledgehammer. Do something that I've, I don't know, just play around, play with the different dyes. You'll see that in the Sledgehammer, and this is going to be a great little example of how surface area contact will affect. We're going to be over here first, so I'm sorry. And the manual focus ring is
still
You good? Great. This is going to be a great little example about how surface area contact affects your forging. Because you're going to see me go from the Pilkington with the big old flat dies right here. I actually need to adjust those. Right here to the Sledgehammer, which has some fullering dies in it. Very different. Very, very, very different to forge under. You'll see the effect of reducing the surface area contact is really quite shocking, because you're going to see a vastly different amount of material moved per each blow, despite the fact that the Sledgehammer actually tends to hit a little lighter than the Pilkington. So I'm just going to adjust these, then I'm going to close that up, take a little drift right there. Lock in the die key. Overall, how's the audio sounding, Sam?
Fine, I've dropped the music because you just couldn't hear anything.
All right. Any pops, crackles, anything like that? A couple of little things. I wonder whether it's me messing with the mic a little bit as I talk.
I think it's
just interference.
But other than that,
Nice. So basically, I'll play around a little bit on the Pilkington. I'll do a few little things, just move some material. Then I'll run under the Sledgehammer, and just hopefully give you a little bit of another little example of these machines running. carried away there if you're not careful. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so obviously it's much cooler now than when I started. So this could probably be another little example as to the difference in surface area contact. I'm now going to run to the Sledgehammer and have a play around on this. Check my tongs against it. So I'm just messing around really on that piece, and that's about the ugliest forging I've ever done. A way better thing to do on that Sledgehammer is what I did in this class. Because they were doing a Sledgehammer class, let's see if I can do a little better demonstration right about now. Because I was doing a Sledgehammer class and they were going to be using those dies to make troughs, I basically had them make troughs up the piece. They actually made some pretty cool looking things as a result. You'll notice this machine does not have a lot of control. It's kind of difficult to get a lot of control out of it. Can you do me a... Oh, that's all right. I'll just run and get it. Lost where I put it. Ah, I found it. Just over there. Sorry guys, I apologize for that. So I have these little inserts that I make for these bottom power hammer guys, and where they occasionally come loose. One of the things I was telling these guys today on today's class, especially with the work that they're going to be doing, was to getting some single blows a little experiment. Get a feel for what it's like when you're forging and you want to let up on the treadle. Get a feel for what that delay is like. You know, these are all getting for a feel for it by putting it through all sorts of different paces is is really important, you know. So this is the kind of stuff. Have a play for it. Have a play with the treadle. See how you like it. So something that I do a lot of when I'm running the power hammers is squaring up billets. You saw me do a little example of that. You saw me do a little example of that earlier on that one piece that I mangled under the power hammer and then quickly ran away with, so you wouldn't get any more of a chance to see it. I do a lot of squaring up billets whenever I go to make any tools and hammers and such. And one of the things you saw me do is I first take the long billet and I put it up on end, and I believe the term that a lot of people use is dog boning. Dog bone it, make it look like a dog bone, having the swell at either end by holding it at an angle and working all the way around with the tongs. That's the pizza. Sorry, burping, apologies. And what that'll do is that'll create a crown on the top surface, so that then when you forge it, you don't get a fish mouth, which really does help. So it's a good thing to do when you're squaring up the billet. I have one more piece of steel, and I think I should play around with it. And I guess I was thinking about doing a billet, or I could do a really huge draw and just kind of mess around and see how much I can pull out under the power hammer. I think I should do that right here. Yeah, I'm just going to mess around. I got a 4.5 pound billet of steel. I guess I'll see how much I can draw out of it. This could be very unexciting, or it could be very exciting. We'll see how it goes. Right, so I'm going to use the Pilkington for this. So I'll go turn it on, and I hope you enjoy. And I hope it doesn't go too badly. I'm probably going to be having a lot of rhombuses. there's the little taper right there. And that's a lot of fun.